All right, get ready because today we are going to dive into a true crime story,
A historical one.
a historical one. Yeah, it's a caper. Sounds like it's straight out of a movie.
Absolutely.
The attempted theft
Yeah.
of President Abraham Lincoln's body.
You heard that right.
It's crazy.
And what's really interesting about the story is that it wasn't just some, like grave robbery.
Right.
This was a really meticulously planned operation with like a fascinating motive behind it.
And to lay it all out for us,
Yes.
our source material for this deep dive is
Yeah.
a Wondery podcast episode.
It's a good one.
Really lays out the whole story. So imagine yourself in Springfield, Illinois,
Okay.
back in 1876, just going about your day when you encounter a guy
Right.
bragging about his plan to steal Lincoln's body from his tomb.
I mean, that's the kind of wild scenario we're dealing with,
It is, and it really speaks to the audacity of some criminals.
doesn't it? But, it also raises questions about Lincoln's legacy
Yeah.
and the state of America.
Right.
Like post-Civil War.
So let's start with that context. What was going on in 1876 that made Lincoln's body
Right.
such a valuable target?
Well, this is just over a decade after the Civil War.
Right.
The nation is still deeply divided, and Lincoln's image represents different things to different people.
Okay.
For some, he's a symbol of unity and, the fight against slavery.
Right.
But for others, he represents, the North's victory and the South's defeat.
Yeah.
So his legacy was still very much in the public consciousness,
Right.
which made him a powerful figure even in death.
So into this complex landscape
Yeah.
steps our mastermind,
Right.
Big Jim Connolly.
Big Jim Connie.
He wasn't just some, petty thief, was he?
No, not at all.
Right.
Connolly was like this notorious counterfeiter.
Yeah.
And his operation, his criminal enterprise really relied on the skills of his top engraver, Ben Boyd.
Okay.
But Boyd was in prison,
Got it.
and Connolly needed him back to keep his operation afloat.
So the idea is to hold Lincoln's body hostage in exchange for
Yeah,
Boyd's release.
that's the plan.
Bold plan.
It's a bold plan.
And they don't just, hatch this scheme from afar.
Right.
They actually set up shop right near Lincoln's tomb in Springfield.
They do. It's crazy.
They establish a saloon and a dance hall as like a front,
Oh,
giving them the perfect cover to observe the tomb, learn the routines,
Right. Yeah.
identify any weakness
Give him security.
in its security. Yeah.
They even chose July 3rd, the eve of the centennial celebration, for their first attempt.
That's right.
What was the thinking behind that?
Well, they were counting on the distractions of the upcoming festivities.
Okay.
Everyone's focused on the celebrations.
Right.
So security at the tomb might be a little bit more lax,
Mm-hmm.
and any suspicious activity, is less likely to attract attention.
Clever.
Pretty clever. But then it almost falls apart because one of their own
I know.
can't hold his liquor.
Oh, yeah. Thomas Sharp, one of Connelly's henchmen, gets drunk and starts boasting about the plan
Of course.
to a woman.
To a woman.
And word gets back to Connelly, who is furious. I mean, he's forced to abort the mission at that point, knowing that their cover is blown.
Yeah. This Sharp character
Oh, yeah.
seems like a liability.
He does.
What did Connelly see in him in the first place?
Well, maybe he was just desperate for manpower,
Yeah.
Maybe Sharp had some other skills that Connelly found useful.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever the reason, his loose lips, put a serious dent in their plans.
So what does Connelly do? Does he give up?
Oh, no way.
Not a chance.
Yeah.
He heads back to Chicago, determined to make another attempt.
Okay.
But this time he needs a new crew and a more refined approach.
Enter Terrence Mullen and Jack Hughes, Connelly's associates in Chicago.
Yes, trusted guys.
But there's another key player in this story, right? On the other side of the law.
Yeah.
Who is it?
So we've got Secret Service agent Patrick Tier.
He's the one who put Ben Boyd away in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been tracking Connelly's activities,
Right.
suspecting that he's up to something big.
But here's the challenge.
What's that?
Tier has this incredible story about a plot to steal Lincoln's body,
Yeah,
and no one believes him.
it's a tough sell.
I can imagine
Right.
trying to convince your superiors that this is actually happening.
Grant's like, come on, guys, this is real.
Exactly.
So Tyr decides to get creative. He needs someone on the inside,
Mm-hmm.
someone who can infiltrate Connelly's gang and feed him information.
Right.
That's where Louis Swiggles comes in.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Louis Swiggles,
Yeah.
the reformed horse thief.
The one and only.
Wow.
He's recruited as what they call a roper.
Okay.
An informant who can gain the trust of criminals and report back
So how does Swiggles manage to do that?
to gain their trust.
Yeah.
Well, he needs a believable criminal backstory.
Okay.
So Tyr and Swiggles,
Mm-hmm.
they stage a fake robbery, making it look like Swiggles is like a seasoned pro.
Oh, wow.
Hughes and Mullen,
Right.
who are tasked with, vetting new recruits,
Mm-hmm.
they fall for it, hook, line, and sinker.
They buy it.
Totally.
That's amazing.
So now Swiggles is in
Needs that.
deep undercover,
Yeah.
ready to feed information back to Tyr.
Okay.
And this is where it gets really interesting because he learns that the target isn't counterfeiting equipment,
Right.
it's Lincoln's body.
Wow.
The plan is to hold the body for ransom.
That's crazy.
They want Ben Boyd released from prison,
What do you
and
think?
they want $200,000,
Wow.
which was a fortune back then.
It still is.
Yeah, pretty much.
What I find fascinating is that they were so confident in this plan.
Well,
Did they really think they could pull this off?
gotta remember this is 1876.
Right.
Security measures weren't what they are today,
Sure.
and Lincoln's tomb,
Oh, wow.
well, grand,
Right.
perhaps not as impenetrable as they imagined.
Yeah.
They had a plan to bury the body temporarily and then use a torn newspaper
Right.
left at the tomb as proof.
So they have a plan. They have the motive. They have the audacity.
They do.
But Swiggles is way over his head now.
Yeah, he is.
How does he handle this?
Well, he knows he needs backup and fast.
Right.
He can't blow his cover by being too hesitant.
Yeah.
So he plays along,
Okay.
suggests that they need an explosives expert
To broke into the tomb.
to break into the tomb. Yeah,
Enter Billy Neely,
that's right.
a bricklayer posing as a demolitions expert.
I love it.
Neely's role is crucial here.
It is.
It adds another layer of credibility to Swiggles' whole undercover persona.
Right. Like, oh, yeah, we got our explosives guy.
Exactly.
We are legit.
And with Neely on board, the gang feels like they've got all the pieces in place.
We do.
They even set a date for the heist, November 7th, Election Day.
Big day.
Another strategic choice,
Oh, yeah.
I presume.
They figured with the nation preoccupied with the presidential election. Between Rutherford B. Hayes and Samuel Tilden,
Right.
they figured security would be even more lax,
Right.
and any unusual activity would go unnoticed.
So we have the stage set,
Yeah, we do.
daring plan,
Mhm.
a conflicted informant,
Yes.
a nation on the edge of its seat, both politically
Oh.
and in this unfolding crime drama.
It is.
So what happens next? So we left off with Connolly and his gang, along with Swiggles and Neely, heading to Springfield to put their plan into action. But back in Chicago, Secret Service agent Tyr is facing a real challenge.
Yeah, trying to convince his superiors that this plot to steal Lincoln's body
Right.
is not some elaborate hoax,
Yeah.
but a genuine threat.
I imagine that was tough.
It was.
Like, who would even try to steal a president's body?
Right. That's what they were probably thinking.
Yeah.
But Tyr understood Keneally's audacity,
Yeah.
and the lengths he would go to
Right.
achieve his goals, especially when his counterfeiting empire is on the line.
Right, because without Ben Boyd.
Without his expert engraver, yeah. Yeah, all falls apart.
Meanwhile, the gang is in Springfield.
Okay.
They're getting ready to execute this plan.
Right.
They have all the details ironed out.
They do.
Even.
They thought of everything.
Like how to deal with the weather.
Oh, yeah. They knew that if the ground froze,
Right.
it would be impossible to bury the body temporarily.
As part of their ransom plan.
Right. So they were watching the weather reports closely.
They thought of everything.
They really did.
But what about
Yeah.
Ben Boyd's wife, Allie?
Oh,
Wouldn't she be involved since this whole scheme is partly to get her husband out of prison?
this is where things get a little bit complicated.
Okay.
Allie Boyd wants nothing to do with this plan.
Really?
She dismisses Connolly's associates,
Hughes and Mullen.
Hughes and Mullen. Yeah, she believes that they're incompetent
Wow.
and their scheme is doomed to fail.
It makes you wonder what their relationship was like.
I know, right?
Like maybe she didn't trust Connolly,
Yeah.
or perhaps she believed in her husband's innocence
Maybe.
and that he'd be released through legal means,
Right.
whatever the reason.
It adds another layer to this already audacious plan.
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
So back in Springfield,
Okay.
Swiggles and Neely,
Yeah,
they're walking a tightrope,
they are.
pretending to be part of the gang
Okay.
while secretly working to sabotage the plan.
Uh-huh.
What's happening with Tyr at this point?
Tyr is racing against time.
Okay.
He's relying on Swiggles' updates, which are limited and often cryptic because,
Right.
he can't reveal too much.
Yeah.
But he knows they're going for the body,
Mhm.
but he doesn't know their specific plans or the exact timing.
Okay.
So it's a tense waiting game as Election Day approaches.
Election day finally arrives, and the country is glued to the results of the Hayes-Tilden presidential race.
It's a close one.
Did all this national distraction
Yeah.
work in the gang's favor?
To some extent.
Okay.
Yeah, the election did provide a cover,
Okay.
diverted attention away from their activities.
Right.
But here's where their meticulous planning hits a snag.
What's that?
They had assumed
Okay.
that Lincoln's tomb would be relatively easy to break into.
Well, but wouldn't a president's tomb be heavily guarded
You would think. Right.
and fortified?
You would think.
Seems like a risky assumption.
Yeah, that's where their assumptions started to unravel.
What happened?
Lincoln's tomb is far more secure than they anticipated.
Okay.
I mean, the sarcophagus is made of solid marble.
No,
It weighs several tons.
see.
And inside that
Right.
is a lead-lined coffin.
Oh, wow.
So they're realizing that this isn't going to be a quick in and out job.
What do they do?
They try to saw through the lock on the sarcophagus door,
Okay.
but their tools are inadequate for the task.
Right.
And all the noise that they're making is really raising their anxiety levels.
Makes sense.
They're starting to panic, worried that somebody might hear them.
Yeah. This must have been an incredibly tense moment
Oh, yeah.
for Swiggles and Neely. What did they do to try to slow things down?
Well, they're playing their roles brilliantly
Right.
to stall for time.
Right.
They suggest using explosives
Oh.
to break open the sarcophagus,
Wow.
knowing full well that it's a terrible idea
Yeah.
and it would likely alert the guards.
Right.
So they're essentially playing the part of the eager but incompetent accomplices.
Did they actually go through with blowing up the tomb?
No, thankfully they didn't.
Okay.
But they did manage to chip away at a corner of the sarcophagus lid,
Okay.
just enough to realize the immense weight of the coffin inside.
Wow.
And this is where doubt really starts to creep in.
Yeah.
The reality of what they're attempting really sets in.
Yeah.
Yeah?
And what about Tyr?
Yeah.
Was he anywhere close to catching up with them at this point?
Tyr arrives in the Springfield
Okay.
with a small team of agents,
Mhm.
but he's facing another hurdle.
What's that?
The local authorities are skeptical.
Still?
Still, yeah. So he's having trouble convincing them to take him seriously.
So you have this crazy scene unfolding.
Yeah.
The country is on edge, waiting for these election results.
Right.
And in the middle of it all, you have these agents trying to convince local authorities
Yeah.
to help them stop a grave robbery of epic proportions.
I mean, talk about a tough sell.
It's unbelievable.
And it's really a testament to Tyr's persistence that he doesn't give up.
Right.
He knows he has to act fast,
Mhm.
relying on Swiggles's very limited communication
Right.
to guide him.
Yeah.
So back at the tomb,
Yeah.
the gang is starting to really understand the magnitude of what they've undertaken.
Okay.
Yeah.
What happens next?
Well, the weight of the situation,
Mm.
both literally and figuratively,
Yeah.
is bearing down on them.
Right.
The sheer difficulty of moving this coffin,
Yeah.
coupled with the fear of being caught,
Right.
leads them to a decision.
Are they giving up?
Not entirely.
Okay.
They decide to regroup and try again the following night. They just figured they need better tools
Right.
and a more refined approach.
Okay.
And they figured with Election Day behind them, things would be quieter at the cemetery.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
But surely Tyr is closing in.
He is, but remember, communication back then wasn't as instantaneous as it is today.
Right.
He's relying on telegrams,
Yeah.
word of mouth.
It takes time.
It does take time.
And he's still dealing with a town full of people who
Right.
think this is a hoax.
Right, exactly.
And all the while, Swiggles and Neely are stuck in this incredibly precarious situation.
yeah,
What are they doing to navigate this?
they're walking a tightrope.
Yeah.
If they're too helpful,
Right.
the gang might actually succeed.
Right.
But if they're too obvious in their attempts to sabotage the plan, their cover is blown.
Right.
It's a delicate balance.
Yeah.
That requires some quick thinking and nerves of steel.
This is getting more intense by the minute. So what happens as the gang prepares for this second attempt? Okay, so the gang is back at Lincoln's tomb.
Round 2.
Round 2.
They are determined.
They got their new tools.
They got your plan.
They think that the post-election calm is going to work to their advantage.
They think so.
But what about Tyr?
Well, he's still playing catch up.
Okay.
But he's finally made a little bit of headway.
What's he done?
He's managed to convince the local authorities that this plot is real.
Finally.
So they've assembled a posse
Okay.
to head out to the cemetery.
So it's a race against time now.
It is.
Are they going to get there in time?
Well, here's where the story takes a turn that you almost wouldn't believe.
What happened?
As the gang is like working on the sarcophagus,
Okay.
a noise startles them.
Oh, what was it? Did somebody spot them?
It wasn't the authorities,
Good.
but it might as well have been. It turned out to be just some random visitors
To the cemetery.
to the cemetery, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Probably just paying their respects to President Lincoln.
Even an innocent visit like that must have felt like a close call to the gang.
Absolutely.
I mean, they're already on edge.
On edge, yeah. And this unexpected interruption just sends them into a panic.
Yeah. Talk about pressure.
Oh, no.
Like in the dead of night trying to steal a president's body and suddenly people show up.
Yeah, they just dropped everything.
Really?
Yeah, their tools,
Wow.
the partially open sarcophagus,
They just ran.
and they fled into the darkness.
Wow, so close.
So close.
What about Swiggles and Neely?
They are right there with the rest of the gang,
Okay.
feigning surprise and fear
Of course.
as everyone scatters.
Yep.
They blend in with the shadows.
Wow.
They essentially disappear from the scene.
They had to think on their feet.
They did.
React quickly.
Quick thinking, yeah.
So the gang escapes
For now,
for now.
yeah,
But what about Lincoln's body?
it's safe.
Oh, good.
Yeah, thankfully it's still there,
Right.
albeit in a slightly disturbed state.
Right.
Tyr and his men arrive at the tomb. Yeah.
They find it in disarray.
Yeah.
But the body hasn't been taken.
Wow.
I imagine that was a huge sigh of relief.
That's good news.
It is.
But the gang got away.
They did, but not for long.
Does Tyr catch them?
He does, yeah. The authorities launch this massive manhunt,
Okay.
and one by one, the members of the gang are apprehended.
Wow.
They're tried and convicted for their roles in the plot,
Good.
but their sentences vary.
So justice is served.
It is.
But what about Swiggles and Neely?
Right.
Do they get, like, recognition for their undercover work?
Well, their role in preventing this historical travesty remains largely unknown to the public.
Really?
Yeah,
That's too bad.
it is.
They returned their lives.
They do.
Their actions a secret.
A secret, yeah.
It's remarkable to think about these two ordinary guys
Yeah,
playing such a pivotal role in protecting a national icon.
it really speaks to their courage
Yeah.
and, the extraordinary lengths they were willing to go to.
For the sake of history
Mhm.
and maybe a bit of adventure.
Yeah, for sure.
Who knows?
This whole story is like a wild ride through history.
It is.
We got political intrigue,
Uh-huh.
a true crime caper,
Yes.
and even a touch of the unbelievable.
I love it.
It's a reminder that history,
Yeah.
it's full of surprising twists and turns.
It is.
And that even the seemingly impossible can be attempted.
Absolutely.
It makes you think about Lincoln's lasting impact on the nation
I know.
and the lengths to which people would go to either exploit or protect his legacy.
That's right.
And it also raises questions about security.
It does.
How vulnerable are these national icons,
I know, right?
even in death, to people who want to exploit them?
That's a question worth pondering.
It is.
It also makes you appreciate the work of those who dedicate themselves to protecting these symbols
Right.
of our history and heritage.
So for you, our listener,
Yes.
we hope that this deep dive has given you a new perspective on history, a sense of the unexpected,
For sure.
and a reminder that there's always more to the story than what's on the surface.
Always.
If you want to learn more about this incredible tale,
Yeah.
we encourage you to check out that Wondery podcast episode.
Yeah, it's a good one.
That delves into even more detail about this attempted heist.
Yeah, it'll leave you thinking about Lincoln and
Okay?
history
Yeah.
and the audacity of some criminals in a whole new light.